Hi, all signed up for Jeff Raskoff's Photoshop. And today we're going to talk about blending two layers together with a mask. And so this week I'm going to talk a lot about layers and also texture today. So kind of what made me think about it was Wired magazine. So I was cleaning out all my kind of stuff at West Valley, trying to clean up my life here, and I had a bunch of Wired magazines at the campus, and I brought them all home. And you know, the Wired was a print magazine that came out in the 90s, mid 90s, and with that, it kind of pioneered the kind of new digital printing and design. It was a very design oriented magazine, and here's the link, of course, wired.com. And I have every issue since it's 94. No, actually 95. I'm sorry, I missed the first 6 issues. It started in 94, and then I missed the first 6 issues. I should have got those, but I have every one since probably February 95, I think. And it made me think a lot. They had, for today's lesson, I was thinking about texture in the buildings. They used to show a lot of buildings, like tech buildings, in the magazine, in their ads and things like that. So if you want to look up Wired, it's a great magazine. And I think those of you who are in my West Valley class, if you come back to campus, I'll try and put a couple of the older magazines on the bookshelf there, and so you can see kind of the design style from previous, the design style. So a lot of Photoshop kind of blending of images together in this magazine, especially in the 90s. Nowadays it looks like any other kind of magazine. It's kind of stale, but it used to be very dynamic design and big letters, and it was wonderful. So for this lesson, I'm going to use some buildings, and I'm going to blend the buildings together. So I'm going to find some buildings. I was thinking back then in the 90s, I was living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I was thinking of PPG Tower. And they have PPG stands for Pittsburgh Plate and Glass. So they had a big glass building in downtown. And so Tower, I spelled it wrong. Toner. Tower, there we go. And then once you have that, of course, we've already talked about copyright this week, and so we have our license here. And you say commercial use and modifications allowed. And then I'm going to kind of just download some. I like this one, so I'm going to use this one. I've already practiced this lesson to show you. So if I download, I'm going to download again. If you're using Flickr, again, I'm using Flickr.com, and I just typed in a building that I thought I'd like to use, or something like that, and then I found several, and then again I used building modification allowed, and then I'm going to download here in Flickr. You have a little download arrow here, and then I'm going to download the original, which is probably the biggest one. I'm going to save it on my computer, and maybe I'll download one more if I'm ambitious to do another one. Let's see. I don't know about that one. Oh, this is kind of interesting. Boston. I don't know why I want Boston. I do like the lights here, though. I don't like that. No, I don't. This was the only one I kind of liked, was this one. Let me see. Maybe we'll download this one as well. There we go. Okay, so in this lesson, I'm just going to kind of talk a little bit about masks, because we just started using masks. Last class, I talked about masks and how we painted to show the image that's underneath it. Well, I'm going to do kind of something similar here, but we're going to use typography. I'm going to start introducing typography, and so let me minimize this, and let me open up. Let me get my images and kind of slap them in the middle of my page here. I got a big mess on my desktop, I know. I got a lot of strange things happening here. So let me open up Photoshop. And so what I'm trying to do is learn maybe some of the black and white that we've learned already, how to convert something to black and white, and then add some color to it. But this way is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to show you sort of a technique of making black and white without actually going to black and white, and you'll see what I mean. So let me open up that image. It's on my desktop here. Let's go with the one I really like, this one, and let me go. And so here it is, and there is a little color in there. It looks kind of black and white, but there is color information in this. It is an RGB image. You can see it in the thing here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 layers of this file. So again, if you notice in the layers window, and if you don't see layers, you can always go into window layers, and layers pops up. I don't want it to be a background layer. I want to convert it to a regular layer. So you can just, again, double click on it, and it'll make it a normal layer. Next, I'm going to duplicate that layer. So I do this often. Again, the layer window is very complex, but we can do a lot of really good things with it. One of them, of course, is to duplicate a layer. A quick way of doing it is there's a little plus down here next to the trash can at the bottom of the layer window. So if I take the layer and drag it in on that plus right there and release the mouse, it'll give me 2. So now I have 2. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to take the bottom one, and I'm going to color it a little bit. Or actually, I'm going to get rid of all the color in it. I'm going to make it pure black and white. And then let me take the top one and make and exaggerate the colors. Then I'm going to get a number. Like I said, I was going to talk about letters and typography, and I'm going to get a number, and I'm going to use that number to blend the two together to give me kind of a design. Again, I'm thinking of the Wired magazine, and they used to do a lot of, they would take a building like this and do some kind of Photoshop effect to it for an ad or a article or something like that. And so they used to love to do Photoshop like effects and put them in ads because it was a new greatest thing, you know, using Photoshop for print. Now we're so used to it there, but 1995, 96, using Photoshop in a printed thing was a kind of a new thing. So I'm thinking about that. So again, I'm going to take the bottom layer. Let me turn the eyeball off, and then you can turn the eyeball off. Now you don't see anything change because they're both the same thing. But I'm going to take the bottom one. I'm going to get rid of all the color information in there. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustment, Saturation. And I'm going to take the saturation and take it all the way down to 0. And the reason why I'm doing that is I want to make it black and white, but I don't want to make it grayscale. Because once I make an image grayscale, and I think you saw me doing this, let me cancel this for a moment. We'll go back in time. If you remember last week, I was showing how to make black and white, and we were going under image mode, and we went to grayscale here. But the problem with that is it's going to convert the entire thing, both the top layer here and the bottom layer, to gray, and then I wouldn't be able to use the color information in this top layer. So that would be a problem because I want to keep the color information in this top layer here. So instead of converting to grayscale, I'm going to use the RGB here, and I'm going to go to Adjustment, and then again Adjustment, Hue and Saturation, and I'm going to take the color information. Saturation means color. Well, actually, not saturation. There's amount of color. So saturation is how much color, and I'm just going to reduce it down to no color. There you go. So it's kind of grayscale. It's not quite grayscale, but there's no color information because I turn the saturation all the way down. So if I hit OK there, it's kind of gray. If you turn the top one on, you can see it just warms a little bit because still color information in there. And I'm not going to exaggerate the color of the top one yet. Maybe I will. Let's do it now. Let's go. I'm going to go to the top one right there, and I'm going to exaggerate the color. Kind of like what I just did with the hue and saturation, where I go under Image, Adjustment, Hue and Saturation, and I'm going to turn the color information way up like that. I'm going to really, no, not that hard, but actually there was things in Wired that would look just like that. They would do things just like that. I'm going to go pretty high, kind of like that, almost too crazy, but not quite crazy enough. And so there you go. I exaggerated the color information. You can see grayscale, color, grayscale, color, grayscale, color. Now let's use a shape. Think of shapes in design. We're going to be using a lot of color, a lot of type for textures and things like that. So I'm going to use a letter or a number, and I'm going to use it to blend these two together. And there's a variety of different ways, and I'm sure there's multiple techniques. I'm just showing you one technique. And so I'm going to go put a letter on here. So let's go, or a number. Let me put a number. So I'm going to go to the type tool. We haven't really looked at the type tool. When you use the type tool, you got your font, you got your type of type. I'm going to use, I guess I can't use, I don't like Arial. I'm going to use Futura. We're gonna watch a video on how important Futura was in the world today. Futura went to the moon. How about that? I'm gonna use Futura bold. I want something bold, and I'm gonna make it kind of big. And remember, you should know that 72 point equals 1 inch. So I'm gonna use the 72 point equals 1 inch, and then I'm going to click, and I'm gonna put on. Should we do 3 or 5? I don't know. Kind of like 3, but I'm gonna put a 5 on there. Oh, not a 5 on there. And then I'm gonna make it really big. To do that, I'm going to scale it with the move tool. A lot of times I'm gonna use the transform scale here, but for right now I'm just gonna use the move tool. In the future, we're gonna be using the transform scale a lot, and it's gonna be very important to us. Especially when we get to doing effects. And if you use the transform scale here, it'll actually transform and scale the effects. If you're using this technique, which I'm using right now, which is just a move tool to scale something, it won't scale effects. And you'll see what I mean when we get to doing that. So let's make this really big. I'm going to go, grab one of the little dots around the outside, and you can scale. I'm going to scale this to almost the full size of the image, and you might have to go outside of there. You might have to scale out, so I'm going to use Command minus, scale out. I'm going to kind of get it. Ooh, there we go. We're going to go all the way up there, and then all the way over here. Something like that. And let's move it to the center. There we go. Not quite. And you can use the arrow keys to move things around. Oops, it's a little too far. There we go. I'm using the arrow keys. There we go. Okay, so this is wonderful. You get this 5. It's black. Remember, we talked about a mask last week, and in a mask you have a black and white area, and in doing that black and white area, then you can blend things together. So having a black, and I didn't really give it a color, and I didn't show you how to get color in there, but if you're using the text tool again, using the text tool here, you can see there is a color option right there. So I failed to tell you that I'm using black. So maybe next time when you make your font, you can use black right there. Okay, so now I have this giant big letter here. And I want to use it as a mask, but the problem is you can use I think type as a mask, but I don't even want to go there. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this to an object, and by converting this to pixels is what I meant by that. So I'm going to convert this to pixels, this letter, because right now it's not pixels. The computer sees it as the letter 5, ASCII code. I don't know what the ASCII code is for 5, but it's showing you the letter 5, and I don't want the letter 5. I want actually this to be pixels. So to convert a letter to pixels, it's almost like converting text into an object in Illustrator. Some of you probably did that already. But here in Photoshop we convert it to pixels. So if I go under type, you'll see where there is rasterized type layer. It's kind of in the middle there under type. And what they'll do is convert this into a black or just dots. It'll convert it into pixels. We talked about pixels and all that. And so now you'll see the layer turns into a black letter 5. Okay. So in order to use this as a mask, what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the layer. In this case, I'm going to choose this color layer. And I'm going to drag this number that I just turned into pixels, and I'm going to drag it into the mask option. So where's the mask option? The mask option inside the layer window is down here towards the bottom. In the bottom of the layer window, you see you have these little icons that go along the bottom there. So I'm going to use the one that looks like a dot in a triangle here. And if I drag now this number 5, I'm just going to remember to select the layer you want first, which is the color layer, and I'm going to drag it right on top of that mask there, and it'll use that as a mask. And oh, it didn't do what I wanted. Oh, I would need to get rid of this layer. There we go. And turn that layer off when you're done. See the eyeball there? And you'll see the effect, and let me zoom in there. You'll see that I get the color layer over top of the black and white layer. And so it's kind of a technique that is a little bit interesting to bring out, some of the color And so you can use this as a design element in that you can use your object or a letter in this case as a design element. So you can see the letter 5 is the color version in there, but that you can't really see it that much. So if that was important in my design and you can't really see it too much, what you could do is exaggerate it a little bit. So there's two ways I'm going to exaggerate this. One way is to exaggerate using curves, I think some of you. So I'm going to select the color swatch here. So when you're using a mask here, you see there's two objects in the layer window. One of them is kind of your mask, and the other one is your color. So you see these two little thumbnails here. And so I'm going to exaggerate the little color. So I'm going to click on the color swatch in the layer here. And I'm going to go underneath the image adjustment. I'm going to go to curves. I think I showed you curves last week. So I'm going to go to curves, and I'm going to kind of just increase it. And you can see that you can either decrease or increase. See that? And so you can kind of exaggerate that. Oh, maybe I'll go down a little bit. So that's a little bit more interesting. There you go. Now you can really see the color there. So I brought that out using curves. Again, before I choose curves, again, you put a dot along the line, and you can go up or you can go down. And so depending upon your design, you can hit OK. So you got this nice kind of, now I can really see the 5. It's really standing out. And then once you've done something like that, it still doesn't sound, wouldn't it be nice if I could maybe add a stroke around the 5? And hopefully you understand, you've taken some other classes where you know the stroke is the line that goes around an object, and the fill is the color inside. So I'm going to actually use, and this is going to be a little bit complicated, but we're going to learn something very important here. I'm going to actually use this layer that we used for the mask, and I'm going to turn it on. Let me turn it on right now. You'll see there's a little eyeball right there. I'm going to turn that on. So if I click on the eyeball, you see it turns that black 5 back on. And what I want to do is I'm going to stroke this, but I don't want to see the black. So I'm going to, and if you notice in a layer, I'm going to choose that layer. If you notice in a layer, you'll see that there is an opacity and a fill. And we're going to learn the difference between opacity and fill right now. The important thing is the fill is the actual transparency of the inner, this black that you see right now. And the opacity would be the entire layer. So let's say I wanted to add a stroke to this. So let me add a stroke first, and you'll see what I mean. So a stroke is a line that goes around the outside. So if I select the layer that is here right now, the stroke option is located in the effects. And it's down here. Again, we were talking about the icons at the bottom of the layer window here. But if you look down there, there's one that says FX. And in that FX, you'll see there's a whole bunch of them. And we're going to learn about all of them and why we use them. Wait till we get to using inner glow, outer glow, and all these things. But for right now, again, at the bottom, I have the layer selected of this 5, and then I go down here to the stroke option, and I choose it. And it has and you don't really see it. Let me add some color, because it's doing black as a color. You can see stroke, and there's a color black. Let's put a color on there. Let's do red. I don't know. Let's do yellow, because that's Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's a sports team, and sports town, and I'm going to go. So I'm going to hit OK there. And, the problem is this is a little big, but let's make it a little bigger. I'm going to make it bigger, and the problem is you see it's bleeding outside, because I want it outside. If you do inside, it's probably gonna lose it. I don't know, let me say inside and see what happens with the transparency. Let me test this real quick, and I'll come back to this. Hold on. Let me test my idea here. Oh, it still works, yes. Okay, perfect. Okay. So let me go back to this. It still works. So what I want to do is I'm going to choose, when you're choosing stroke here, so to get back, if you do any of these effects and you hit OK and you want to go back to the effect, you just double click on it in the layer window there. And so if you don't see it, there's like a little arrow on the very right side for the effect, and you can see you can open it and close it. So if you double click on that effect over there, it'll open it up. So in this case, I want to add a line around there so you can see the 5 even better. I don't want that big. And so you'll see that for the stroke, there's a size, there's a position, which means, is it outside the object, is it inside the object, or is it centered on the line? So I'm going to do inside because I don't want it to kind of, what I mean by that is it's getting cut off on the edge of my image here. And then blending mode, we learned a little bit about those in a previous lesson. We'll get back to those. I'm not going to use opacity. I'm going to use 100%. And then a fill type of color. And then a color option here. And so there we go. We got our black 5 over top of that. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to hit OK. So the last thing I want to do is I'm going to get rid of the black inside there. So again, in a layer, we have both opacity and fill. And so I don't want to change the opacity, because if I change the opacity, it's going to change the stroke. The stroke will go away too. So that's the difference between fill and opacity. Is fill will make the inside transparent or whatever you want to this inside, but it'll still leave anything outside like a stroke or something visible. Again, watch, if you change the opacity, go all the way down, the yellow's gone because everything's transparent in that layer. But if I change the fill, it's only changing the black part, and it's going to keep the yellow. And so that makes your number even stand out more, and you'll be able to see it. And maybe you don't go all down all the way. Maybe you give it a little bit, then even make it stand out a little more even. That's okay. And so that's how I wanted to show you there. You can practice all those things. That's a lot of things I just demonstrated here, and I did it very quickly, I know. But I don't want to make too long of videos. So you might be able to play this over and over again, or stop the video as you go along. I know I show things very quickly. I apologize for that. But see if you can try this and add it to a discussion, because I would like to see you do this and then upload it to the canvas and show other people your try a number, try a letter. You don't have to do cities either. All you want you to do is kind of blend two images together using a letter form or shape. I do like cities, though. I do like the idea. So maybe choose New York, or choose San Francisco, or choose something, and that. And again, you should save as two different things. You should save as a Photoshop file, so you can always go back and manipulate it. And so I can call this my city blend. Make sure you put your name on it so we know whose it is. How about we put our last name on it? Raskoff. City blend. And then, of course, you don't want to upload a PSD. Don't ever upload a PSD to unless I ask you to Canvas. What you want to do is you want to save it as a JPEG. If you're using the new version of Photoshop, you can go under File, Save As. You save a copy, and then choose JPEG, and then save that, and then upload that. Try and keep it low. You can use medium quality for your JPEG, and then upload that to Canvas.